Greetings, everyone, to all my followers of darkness, shadow scavengers, and villain aficionados. Welcome, bienvenue to one of my good old-fashioned villains review episodes. I'm your host, Laura Shadows, as always, and here we are to discuss about as you can see from my hat, a DC villain. More precisely, one of the most notorious members of Darkseid's elite, Steppenwolf, the general of the Parademon's army. Now, to be more precise, I'm not going to talk about Steppenwolf if from the comics, or I'm gonna talk about Steppenwolf from the DCEU, that version of Steppenwolf. Now, to be more precise, or should I say even more precise, is that I'm not gonna talk about the theatrical version Steppenwolf. I'm gonna talk about Steppenwolf that appears in the Zack Snyder's Justice League movie. Yes, that's Steppenwolf, because I thought of all the versions, this one I think is the most interesting one for me, at least, to explore. And without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? And of course, we will start with, as I like to call it, this is your evil life. Now, basically, it's going to give you a little background of Steppenwolf. So basically, Steppenwolf, like I said, he's a member of the Darkseid elite. He's the general of the Parademon's army of Apocalypse, or should I say he was. He's a member of a race called the New Gods. And basically, in the movie, during one period, like basically he got exiled from Apocalypse because he actually got a part in the rebellion against Darkseid, and that's why he was exiled. And now basically he goes all over the universe to basically conquer worlds, more precisely 50,000 worlds, as a debt to Darkseid, and basically he, with the goal that when he accomplishes that, he will basically come home finally, to be by Darkseid's side. It's kind of weird to say Darkseid's side, like Darkseid side. Like it's kind of weird to say that in a way, but basically to be by his master's side, And throughout his journey, when he came to Earth, not only that he challenged the Justice League, but also at the same time he found that the Earth was actually pretty special, and actually kind of give an idea, or should I say, it gave him a one-way ticket to go to Apocalypse way more faster than usual, So this is kind of like the background of Steppenwolf inside the DCU. Now, the first time, of course, he appeared was in Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, the director Scott, of course, as sort of like a hologram, basically, where he was. I think I always felt like he was kind of like communicating to Lex Luthor, or it could be like a video recording or something. I don't know. But he first appeared in that movie, and then now finally in the DCU's Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, to kind of give you my little background when it comes to my overall personal history with Steppenwolf. Now, Steppenwolf, the first time I was introduced to the character, I think it was like during Superman the animated series. I think that was the time when I was introduced to Steppenwolf, or just like the Darkseid elite in general. And ever since then, and then after that, like through the DC comics, I always kind of saw him as I'm gonna say mindless, but like a very typical like soldier, military underling type of like villain who basically follows every single orders from his superiors. He will do whatever it takes, to conquer a world, in Steppenwolf's case, and he doesn't have like any second thoughts or like acts of like kindness or compassion or mercy when it comes to like, should I kill this person? Should I spare them? Or like, should I maybe not conquer this world? Like nothing. Like he just simply follows from A to Z. Like he follows every single order from Darkseid, then comes back, and say, Masa, I conquered this world. Now what's next on the agenda? And that's basically it. I mean, that's basically how I saw Steppenwolf, But in the DCU, when I saw the Zack Snyder's Justice League, not the theatrical version, the Zack Snyder's version, I have to tell you, like, I found him a lot more interesting than what I usually did in the comics. Now, don't get me wrong, I've noticed a lot of similarities in this Steppenwolf. A lot, just like he was, like I said, through the comics and the anime universe. There's a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of elements that actually makes him like an actual character this time, like an actual villain this time. Although his goal is very much connected, like what he usually is when it comes to Darkseid, in the DC universe. But anyway, so that's kind of like a little background of Steppenwolf. And without any further ado, let's just dive a little bit deeper in his evil life. So like since the very first appearance in this movie, like when he appeared on Themyscira, when like one of the mother boxes was awakened. Ever since that scene, throughout the entire movie, Steppenwolf, I always kind of saw him. The first thing that came to my mind was that he is a barbaric warlord, because like, he has a lot of barbaric personality, like from like the way how he fights, how brutal he is when it comes to like his the way how he talked, and also not to mention like he's beast like elements in his personality, especially like towards the end when the mother boxes were destroyed. Like there's all sorts of elements in this in this movie when it comes to Steppenwolf that really makes him like look like a barbaric warlord. I mean, when I say barbaric, I mean we're talking like like Vikings, Goths, Huns, Gauls, like that kind of like barbaric warlord. And like I said, he's shown, not to mention his favorite weapon being a battle axe. Just saying, and not to mention like when you look at his horns, it almost looks like one of those typical like Viking helmets. Even though those are, well, his actual horns, but you're gonna get the idea, and also, like I said, and also the way how he talked, and also the way how, and also I love that also one of the parts of Steppenwolf's character I always kind of found interesting was like when he first appeared in Themyscira, and basically, he said like, when he was like looking around, you see all the Amazons, and he's like, they like, defenders, they failed, like I think it was like 100, like they failed 100,000 worlds, and then he's like, I've come to enlighten you to the great darkness. I will bathe in your fear. Like it also kind of gives you Steppenwolf is sort of like a harbinger. It kind of gives you an idea that he's also like a harbinger. Of like of death and destruction, or even like conquering the world. Because he almost kind of gave me almost like a harbinger type vibe when it comes to like as a villain. But one of the other things I do have to mention is that like Steppenwolf, like he, like unlike his theatrical version, who is basically kind of like a hegemonic warlord, who basically takes pleasure in destroying everything in front of his path, for his own personal pleasure. This one, however, this version of Steppenwolf, I would say it kind of gives you vibes of like a very kind of like a very sympathetic villain in this case, because you kind of understand where he comes from. You can understand why he's doing all of this, basically, because there's a lot of different elements I've seen throughout this movie for him. Like, for example, I've definitely seen that he has like self-pride when it comes to like confidence, strengths and skills. I mean, we have seen that through like when he was fighting the Amazons at the beginning, or when he was fighting Wonder Woman or the other members of the Justice League, even when he was fighting the heroes like all the way at the end, should I say in the third act, basically, you can see that that he's shown like elements of confidence in his like skills and strengths, and like when it comes to like strength and fighting skills as a warrior, which kind of, like I said, leads to self-pride as well. But one of the other things that also really really kind of found interesting, because even though Steppenwolf in the end, he is cruel, he is a cruel and evil individual. But also there are all other elements that I really found was fascinating when it comes to like Steppenwolf's character. Like, for example, he's shown compassion in a way like he didn't, like, for example, the people of Star Labs, like he didn't kill them immediately. He just simply took them hostages because, of course, he wanted information for the mother boxes, and he was even willing to even spare them, if they give him the information that he needed. Now, of course, even though he took them alive and he kind of like spared them from not dying, he's still prepared, to torture them, doing whatever it takes to get the mother box location. I mean, one of the biggest example is, for example, when he was like torturing the Atlantean, to find the location of the second mother box. Yeah, sure, like he did spare him and everything, but he fucking the hell tortured him with that like cybernetic crab spider thingy. to kind of like, get the location of the second mother box. So like, he is the type of villain that he's willing to take everything to get what he wants, basically. And the other thing, and of course he did that the same thing with the Star Labs, like people, even though throughout that interrogation moment, I've noticed actually like he was willing to even spare them. Like I said, he was even willing to spare them, like if they given the information that he needed, although like, yeah, he would spare them, but like, but then like for what, like after he unlocked all the 3 mother boxes, like basically the entire world will become a wasteland. So what, like he would spare them for what, like a few hours, and then just simply all gone. So yeah, he'll be all for nothing basically. If you look at very closely. But also one of the other things I noticed for Steppenwolf is that when it comes to like he also, I don't know, like he doesn't take any pleasure of like conquering Earth. Like I mean, I'm talking like before he found out about the anti-life equation. He didn't took any pleasure of taking of conquering Earth, because like literally the way how he was like acting, it makes you feel like he was like, oh great, what's the next world on the list? Oh, Earth, yay. All right, parademons, just go, just go, like do your own shit, okay? Like all right, guys, all right, parademons, like we practice, the drill. We go there, we slaughter everyone on our way, we conquer this world, and blah de blah de blah. That's it. Like he didn't took any pleasure. Only when he discovered that Earth is like an actual, well, treasure planet for him, because when he found out that Earth is should I say, the location of the anti-life equation. Just like Thanos had the Infinity Stones, Darkseid had the anti-life equation. And like, so anti-life equation, the power that Darkseid was searching for millennials, it was hiding on Earth. And when he realized that, he took a great pleasure of conquering Earth, because he finally found a fast way to go back to the apocalypse. One-way ticket to apocalypse, please. Because he knew that Darkseid will be very pleased when it comes to like, when he tells him that he found the anti-life equation for him, which kind of brings me another thing that kind of, I understand, but also at the same time frustrated me. Steppenwolf, which kind of also connects to the mindless thing, like I said, being like a underling military, like, villain with no personality. Steppenwolf, I mean, people say he's immensely loyal to Darkseid. Like everything he did just so he can go back to Apocalypse and be by his side. But throughout the entire movie, the way, for example, let's just say the way how he was talking to Desaad, like when he literally was like, on his knees, and he said, please, Desaad, I'm begging you, let me talk to him, that I may come home to be by his side, and then Desaad said, like, you betrayed him, your own family, and so on and so forth. Like, he was desperate. He was desperate. You can see the desperate side of Steppenwolf. That he was like that he will do whatever it takes just so he can go back to where he was. Like that part just simply show you not simply the desperate side of Steppenwolf, but it also shows you that he is blindly loyal to Darkseid. Like it doesn't matter what's happening around him. He will do whatever it takes just to please him. But still, I mean, when Desaad told him, like, you still owe the Great One 50,000 worlds. And then he's like, he will hear your plea when you pay your debt. Jesus, like Darkseid is like the worst moneylender, or should I say world lender, in the entire universe. 50,000 worlds. I mean, wow. I mean, seriously, at this point, if I was Steppenwolf, I'll be like, you know what, Desaad? Fuck it. You know what? Screw Darkseid. Screw you. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna be my own man from this moment forward. I'm gonna create my own army, my own headquarters, my own empire. I'm gonna have my own agenda. If I was Steppenwolf, I would literally think like that. Because 50,000 world, I mean, doesn't even he realize that, like, that will mean that, what, like he will think like, that every single world he will conquer, like what, it will take like few hours. I mean, sure, like some worlds might be conquered easily, but even, but some of them, of course, they're gonna pick up, of course, they're gonna fight to protect their own home world. So, and sometimes conquering can take like from days to weeks to months, even years. And that moment, Steppenwolf's forces would go smaller and smaller and smaller. But by that time, he would not even reach. He would not even reach 50,000 worlds. He will, if he is lucky, he will reach maybe 10,000 worlds, maybe, if he's lucky. Seriously, like, man, like Darkseid is like one of the meanest, like toughest money lenders in the entire universe. I mean, 50,000 words. Like I said, if I was Steppenwolf, I would just simply say, you know what, fuck Darkseid, I'm gonna be my own man from now on. But no, because he's blindly loyal to him, like, he will do whatever it takes, because like, he wants to be by his side. That's the only mission, it's the only goal, it's the only reason why he's still alive. Which in a way, like I say, it's frustrating. And even though I admire his conviction, I admire his devotion. But at the same time, it's also very sad. Very sad. But I get it. When it comes to Steppenwolf, I get it. Sure. But, also, I mean, but the one thing also kind of reminds, which also another proof that kind of goes with him being like, blindly loyal to him. When Darkseid heard that he found the anti-life equation, when he appeared right in front of him, you can kind of say that Steppenwolf shit his pants. He fell on his knees again, and he's like, "My lord, I'm but your humble servant." Yeah. That's not immensely loyal. That's blindly loyal. Which kind of, in the end, makes it a little bit sad. Which also kind of brings me to, if I have to categorize Steppenwolf in a way, like, what type of villain he is, I will go as far as say that he is as a type of villain, he's like a tragic warlord. Like, when at the end, when you see him, what he has to do, just so because of his craving, because of like, because of like, just so he can go back, because like, he thinks like, because without serving Darkseid, he has no meaning. Like, seriously, that's why, which kind of proves that Steppenwolf's life is empty. Because, like I mentioned a few seconds ago, the whole meaning why he's alive is serving Darkseid. Without it, his life has no meaning. He is nothing more than an empty shell, which is one of the reasons, I think, why he doesn't take any pleasure of conquering Earth. Because like, he's not doing, because like, for him, it's almost kind of makes you feel like he's bored. Because like I said, he has no, how can I put it? He has no inspiration. Like he has no desire, no goal, no like, what's the other word I can use? Like, he has no, like, personal agenda. Let's put it that way. He has no personal agenda, which is in the end, which is why I will even put him, like I said, which I will put him as a tragic, warlord. In the end, like, at the end, after this movie, I kind of feel pity for him. Seriously. I kind of feel pity for him, like, throughout the entire time. Because, what he's doing, instead of, like, trying to create his own agenda, like I mentioned a few times, no, he's still blindly, immensely devoted to Darkseid, that he's doing all of this just for him. Just for him, just so he can be by his side. man, which is one of the reasons why he's a tragic villain. I mean, I can go through a lot of different things for like his character, but like like this is like one of the few things I just really wanted to go before I go into other details. Now, the other thing, of course, when I'm talking about villains, of course, is the villain's origin story. Now, with the Steppenwolf's origin story, there's nothing much. There's not a lot. The only thing we know is at one point he was a general of the Parademons army of Apocalypse, and then one time there was this rebellion. He decided to part to take down Darkseid, and then basically immediately after, like he was part of it, he basically had second thoughts, and he eliminated all all the rebels who tried to take over Apocalypse's throne. But when that happened, it was all just simply went to waste. All just simply went to waste because the damage has already been done, and Darkseid basically exiled him. It exiled him, from Apocalypse, and and he can come back only if we conquer 50,000 worlds. Jesus, Karabast. I don't know. I mean, the origin story of Steppenwolf is, I don't know, I mean, it's very simple. Okay, it's very simple with little information that we know. Like I said, the only thing I can describe is it's very simple, and it's kind of like a beginning of he basically that started this desire to basically come home and basically be by his side again. It's very difficult to describe because, like I said, we don't know, we know very little about him. Like I said, the only thing we knew that he was Darkseid's uncle, that he was the general of the Parademons army of Apocalypse, and at one time he betrayed him because he took part of this rebellion. So basically, but in a way, he kind of assumes that at one point, maybe Steppenwolf kind of saw Darkseid's true color. Maybe he kind of saw that the way how he rules Apocalypse, is wrong. That he actually saw him as a complete monster, as a tyrant. That the people maybe should deserve someone or something else. Maybe at one point, I mean, it kind of gives me an idea. Maybe at one point, Steppenwolf had, a little, at least like glimpses of like some sort of personality or character. I don't know. I mean, or maybe the people around him persuade him somehow. They either manipulate him or persuade him to go against Darkseid. I mean, I don't know. There could be a lot of different reasons. But but if he actually, decide to join him by himself, that could also mean, that he had some personality. He had some, character. He had some free will. Let's put it that way. But it didn't last very long. For example, when Steppenwolf said, I saw my mistake. I slaughtered those who sought his throne. It's kind of like an excuse to kind of basically make Darkseid saying oh, okay, all is forgiven. All is forgiven. I've forgotten everything. No. That's not how Darkseid works. The damage, like I said, the damage has already been done. So again, that kind of proves that maybe he had some character after all, but it didn't last long. This kind of reminds me of Superman the animated series when Superman defeated Darkseid and basically he throw him on the floor in front of his people, and kind of basically assuming they're all gonna go rebel, they're all gonna rebel against him, and everything. But then what happens? They pick him up. And it's oh, sir, sir, master, are you okay? Please let us help you and everything. But basically, Darkseid said you might he may be on Earth, he might be a hero, but here I'm a god. The way how Steppenwolf was acting, I kind of it kind of brought me back to those that particular episode in the Superman the animated series. So I think maybe that's the same thing that maybe happened with Steppenwolf. In the end, who knows? But so far, like I said, when it comes to his origin story, It's very simple. There's nothing much, there's nothing much, to discuss to kind of give you an idea why he, what kind of draw him into a path where he is, throughout the entire movie. Because literally, he, first and foremost, he was still a villain from the beginning. Second, the only thing that created inside him was literally just to repay his debt to Darkseid for all the things that happened. That's the only thing that kind of inspired him, because of the his origin story, I should say, because of the exile thing. So there's nothing much to talk about. But even though, again, it's not that refreshing. It's not something new. It's not something that wow, that's really well done. Wow, I've never seen it before. No, it's this kind of type of origin story. We've seen that already. I mean, because we have seen countless villains in fiction who have been exiled because of some mistake they've done in the past. Mostly it is betrayal, and they had to do something, to repay their debt, their debt to go back, to their former glory, basically. And that's basically what Steppenwolf wanted. So again, simple, but still kind of gives you an idea why, why he was on a quest to find the mother boxes, and basically, the goal that went basically led all the way through the anti-life equation and everything. Even though he did find the anti-life equation by accident, but still, you kind of get the idea what he has been through, and kind of the overall motivation and everything. Even though if he had one, I wouldn't call that motivation. I would just simply call obsessive, blind loyalty. That's basically how I would call it. But still, now going to strengths and weaknesses. Now, of course, as I mentioned before, Steppenwolf is a new god, and of course, as you all know, new gods have different physiology, which means advanced strength, durability, endurance, jumping, speed, agility, reflexes, stamina, senses, biological immortality, space survivability, aquatic survivability as well, X proficiency, paradigm and conversion and control, heat resistance, and of course radiation immunity, and sharp claws from those very strange looking hands. And of course, I mean, the other things I can also connect with is, of course, the whole wormhole generation from the boom tubes, terraforming through the mother boxes, and the memory viewing through the mind probes, like when he was interrogating that Atlantean, for example. Now, throughout the entire movie, when it comes to his strength, he has shown to be a very brutal, tough opponent. Very tough opponent. I mean, like I mentioned before, just the way how he fought the Amazons. He literally on his own, he fought the Amazons, defeated him. He fought against Queen Hippolyta. You can see that he was a very powerful, strong opponent. I mean, just the way how he stopped that arrow from Hippolyta, it was nothing. You could that shows you how powerful and skilled he is. Even though when it comes to his overall skills, because like I said, he uses that battle axe as his weapon, basically. Even though when it comes to the weapon skills, basically, like I say, it's very barbaric gladiator style fighting. Because usually, when you have Vikings and other but those barbaric tribes, yeah, sure, they usually have swords and different kinds of weapons, but they also had axes. And the way how he fights is very typical, axe fighting when it comes to fighting skills in general. So yeah, but besides that, he really stood his own. He really stood his ground, when he was fighting the Justice League and everyone else in front of him. Literally when it comes to his strength, he is almost just like when I was talking about Shadow the Hedgehog, he is like a complete jackpot when it comes to his skills and strengths and powers. This guy really proved himself to be a formidable opponent. Absolutely, from his strength to his fighting skills and everything. Not to mention, like, also because, of course, him being like sort of like a military villain, and also being a warlord. Of course, like one of the other skills that he has, of course, is of course to control his parademons army. Which is kind of like, again, very typical. If you are a military leader, of course you need to have some like skills, some like presence to basically, or even like showing a little bit of intimidation. You show like some, no, not intimidation, but like showing like some signs that so that the parademons can be intimidated in his case, when it comes to like his overall presence. There's a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of like elements about his strength that really is spot on. Now, of course, with every strength comes in every weakness. With Steppenwolf's weakness, I would say usually I always said that usually the weaknesses are usually in their overall characters, or should I say their overall personality, basically. Let's put it that way. Their overall persona. But in Steppenwolf's case, I would say the weaknesses for the entire movie were basically if like things that were thrown at him that he was not anticipating, or things that he was not prepared for. And three, I mean, I can also throw. There were also some things that he couldn't control, but like that's also kind of like it's very similar to the first two things that I was talking about. So I will go with my main third thing, which I will call his weakness, is that he fought an opponent that was strong, that was way more stronger than him. Which is which again, but even still, even though, which in this case, of course, was Superman, he was way more stronger than him. But even still, with those weaknesses, I did respect Steppenwolf, that even still, like with everything going on, he still tried to put up a fight. He was trying, he was still trying to win, to basically in Darkseid's favor, which, like I said, one of the things I respect about Steppenwolf is his conviction, and he definitely had it, But yeah, those are like basically his main weaknesses, if I have to say, for Steppenwolf. Things like he couldn't control, couldn't anticipate, or he wasn't prepared for, and of course having someone who's stronger than him, which is basic, and those are basically kind of like Steppenwolf's weaknesses, which which of course, which I would say are like one of the most natural weaknesses when it comes to like villains, because like we of course we can try, villains sometimes can try to be a few steps ahead of their opponents or the main hero, but of course there will always be something that will screw you over, every single time. There will always be something that will fuck you up every time, but in this case, the only great thing that you can do as a villain, either try to survive to live another day, to fight another day, or just simply, if you have nothing to lose, just go for it, even though it would lead to their immediate death. But at least you will go out with a bang, just like Steppenwolf did. Although, should I say, the defeat was so, let's just say that he went all out, so all out, that they literally knocked his head off, literally. But anyway, now the last thing I just want to talk about is, of course, is the villain's goal. Now, I mentioned a few times throughout, like Steppenwolf's character, like he is so, like I said, because of his blind and immense loyalty to Darkseid, his goal is to basically, like I said, to return home to Apocalypse and his family, to try to deliver the anti-life equation to Darkseid, and of course to repay his debt to Darkseid, and of course not to mention trying to take back the mother boxes, and of course use them to conquer the planet. I mean, some people might even like add like killing the Justice League and everything, but that's kind of like an obvious thing, because like every time when there's a villain, there's always going to be a hero that will try to stop them. But in this case, like when it comes to like Steppenwolf's goal, like I said, the only meaning of his life was always his blind loyalty to Darkseid, trying to go back to where he was, back to his former glory. Because all his goals, even though it's refreshing, but at the same time it's a little bit sad, because nothing in his goals, like he was a man he is a being that he didn't do like he no goal, like all of his goals. He didn't do anything for power. He like, or should I say, he wasn't like, he's not craving power. He doesn't want to conquer Earth for his own agenda. He doesn't want to like create his own empire. Nothing. Like all he did is to try to go back to Darkseid, to repay his debt. Again, I respect his conviction. I respect his durability. I respect his devotion. But in the same time, it's a little bit pathetic, because like 50,000 worlds. I mean, if I was him at least, I would have used the anti-life equation for his own personal agenda. But okay, okay, because like I said, for villains like him, if they take away, like in his case, the overall devotion to their own leaders, their lives are empty. Their lives has no meaning. Everything they do, the only thing they can do is literally go on a rampage and do everything, just to basically to take out their overall rage and suffering, because the only thing that they cared about was taken away from them. Like Douglas Bullet, for example, from One Piece Stampede. I'm just saying. But even with that being said, I will say that there are that his goals are refreshing. Because usually, like I said, we have conquering the world, power hungry, revenge, taking over, and so on and so forth. Like we usually have those types of goals, and I don't mind. But sometimes I do appreciate some refreshing goals, just like in Steppenwolf's case as well. And with that being said, here comes the rating of Steppenwolf's character. From 1 out of 10, I'm going to give Steppenwolf 8.5 out of 10 shadows as a villain. Overall, for the entire movie, he impressed me. He really impressed me as a villain. I understood where he comes from. I understood the overall conviction, the overall idea, why he was doing all of this on Earth, the overall, mother boxes, anti-life equation, and try to repay his debt. I respect, like I said, one of the biggest things I respect Steppenwolf is, like I said, his conviction, his devotion, his durability. He proved himself to be a very powerful opponent. He proved himself to be, like a really great, tough warrior. There are a lot of, elements of his character that I really respected as well. But the only reason why he's not a 10 out of 10 for me, or should I say a perfect villain, is because of the overall blind loyalty towards Darkseid. Because he has no personal agenda, no ambition, no vision of his own. Everything he does is just for him, and also because the weakness, which of course is that here comes someone who is stronger than him, But again, nevertheless, before that, those are my only complaints why Steppenwolf is not a perfect villain. But overall, 8.5 out of 10 is a pretty good rating nonetheless. And with that being said, we have come to an end to another Villains Review episode. You guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe, give me all personal thoughts and ideas about Steppenwolf, the DCEU version. If you have seen Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, what did you thought about him as a villain? What did you thought about him as a character in general? Everything about the movie in general, just put it in the comment section down below. Also, if you're interested to see my previous Villains Review episodes from Season 2 or even Season 1, they're going to be in the video description down below as well. Without any further ado, stay tuned for the Villains Review Season 2 finale next week. And until then, stay safe. And like always, Lord of Shadows signing off. Or, as I like to say, in my good old-fashioned way, later, fuckers.